Think we Awesome. Okay, so it looks like we're live now. Thank you so much for joining once again for our storytelling series that is a partnership between Ohio Women's Alliance, Action Fund, and Lead Ohio. As always, this project is a collaboration, and we are working to uplift the voices of women of color across the state, working to better their communities through electoral pathways. Ohio Women's Alliance Action Fund and Lead Ohio are nonpartisan organizations. And so this project is an effort to uplift stories, but not an endorsement of any kind. We are interviewing people based off of an application process and based off of their alignment with our organization's values. But we are not doing any formal endorsements during this process. Just wanted to have some conversations about some really amazing women who are running across the state. So without further ado, would love to introduce Nidhi Satiani, who is running for Upper Arlington School Board. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know things are getting into crazy season, but I'm so glad to be able to chat with you today. Just to introduce myself again, for anyone who is new, my name is Michaela Lee. I work with Lead Ohio, which is where I had the extreme pleasure to meet Nidhi Satiani, who went through our training, and I am really excited to hear from you. So just first, if you wanted to introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and what's going on.
Absolutely. So my name is Nidhi Satiani, and I am running for Upper Arlington's Board of Education. I am running for the Board of Education because I believe there is a gap in our current board, and I believe I'm the person that can fill that gap. Our district has a strategic plan that has so many wonderful ideas in it, but the implementation and evaluation side is a little weak. And for me, when you create a goal, if you aren't thinking about the entire process, then you're stopping short. And the ideas and philosophy that we have just aren't able to work their way into practice. And that ends up making a district that ends up being a lot more reactive than proactive. You end up using a lot of resources, just kind of putting out fires instead of keeping your eye on the prize, keeping your eye on the big picture. So I'm running for our school district. I have a lot of ideas on how we can make sure that Upper Arlington is always a district of choice. People are coming here because they want to be here. This is a strong school system. I am running for our board because I also believe in the power of local leaders to unite communities. And there has been quite a bit of division, especially around the schools these days. And we're seeing that here in Upper Arlington as well.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely launch into that. I know you have a really interesting story about, what advocacy for students looks like in Upper Arlington. But first, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what kind of made you want to step up to run for school board?
Yeah, sure. So my personal background is I'm a mother. I have a fourth grader and a seventh grader. My husband and I have a fourth grader and a seventh grader. And professionally, I was a practicing optometrist for about 15 years. I worked in different sides of optometry. I worked in private practice. I worked in research. I worked as a clinical instructor at Ohio State. So I've seen the different sides of disease treatment. And while it was a very rewarding career, for me, I was seeing a greater need for prevention efforts that are community-wide. And so that prompted a change in career for me. I moved from optometry into public health, graduated with my master's of public health this past December from Ohio State. And I'm really just working to take those skills that we use in healthcare to improve the health of our communities.
Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of combination of, the medical field and public service, and also very, very extremely important in this moment that we're in right now. Wanting to circle back to, what you're talking about of bringing the community together and just a lot of the things going on right now. So it's a mix of so many issues, but there's, COVID. There's a huge global pandemic that has been, really felt and impacted on the school level. But then there's also this really large conversation about inclusivity, especially in places like Upper Arlington. And so, can you talk a little bit more about, what that looks like in your community and what you would like to see?
Absolutely, yeah. That conversation, I mean, that nationally politically divisive rhetoric is certainly we're seeing that in all of our communities, and we're certainly seeing that in Upper Arlington. And so I kind of alluded to earlier that I feel like it's our local leaders who can really help bridge some of these divides that we're seeing in our community because we all choose to live in the community that we live in, and so that alone means that we have something in common. And schools, public school systems are another place where we can come together. It can be another common ground for us to agree on because there isn't anybody who doesn't want a strong a strong school system. So some of the things that I'd love to see our local leaders do is create more opportunities for two-way dialogue. Right now, the way our policies are set up within our district, there is a pretty much one-sided conversation. You go to the public participation part of a school board meeting, you share your stories, you share your concerns, and just the way it's set up, you don't receive the immediate feedback. And without receiving that feedback, you just don't feel heard, right? If you say something and no one's there, even just nodding along, or no one's there um, acknowledging what you say, then you don't feel heard. And I think we've seen that happen within our community where people, if they aren't feeling heard, they find other ways to elevate their voice. Um, and unfortunately for schools like Upper Arlington and a lot of the other Central Ohio schools, this has meant school board meetings that have gotten a little out of hand, that are not reflective of the values of the communities that they represent. And so other opportunities like town hall meetings, or one of the things that I'm doing as a part of my campaign is I'm holding, I call them Voices of UA listening sessions. But they're really, if you're familiar with school, they're office hours. It's an hour or two where I'm sitting somewhere in a public space. I hold them around different parts of Upper Arlington. And if you have a question or you want to chat about anything, like I'm there, that is why I'm there. And I'd love to see our board continue doing something like that. I fully intend to continue doing something like that. And then also it's about, in public health, we're always talking about stakeholders, all the different people who are impacted by policies, and making sure that we're keeping those lines of communication open as well. So whether that's a student advisory board or just having a regular conversation with the staff in our buildings, the custodial staff or the bus drivers, or it's a regular conversation with our teachers. They're living in a world that's created by our policies on a day-to-day basis. So they certainly have an important perspective that can help us decide if our policies are doing what we want them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you kind of bring in those different stakeholders where, when it comes to school board races, and I, haven't been super involved in local politics my whole life, but, we obviously hear so much about the larger offices up higher on the ballot. But when it comes to school board, I feel like people have a new understanding of what school board is and what the possibilities are. But then again, we're still kind of explaining, the impact that it does have on other members of staff in schools, which, that's a lot of people or students, or, the impact that schools have on communities is really important. Do you want to talk a little bit about, as kind of a school board member or as a school board, specifically in Upper Arlington, like what things that you can impact and what things that you want to see happen?
Absolutely. So it's really important that we're kind of triaging the different issues, and there are certainly some issues that are more immediate, and then there are some issues that are longer term. The immediate plans are really specific to Upper Arlington, but it's about supporting families. We have a pretty significant percent of our students, almost 20% of our students, who are on 504s or IEPs. And that is a process that is new for a lot of families. When they first have a student who goes on to a 504 plan or an IEP plan, they don't often know what they need is they don't even know what questions to ask. And so how can we better support our families? And one of the ideas that I talk about on our campaign is, in healthcare we have patient advocates, where it's a person who stays with the patient through a process. And so creating positions like a parent advocate, um, making sure that families who, whether it's the IEP or 504 or even gifted services, that they're able to find out what the supports are available. And then also it's about supporting our teachers. I think we're at a really exciting time. You mentioned, the pandemic, and this is, to me, this is an important time when we can look at this pandemic and say, hey, we really do have a completely different understanding, not completely, but we have a more nuanced understanding of the role that our schools play in our society. And and we have a different understanding of how students learn as well, right? I think for the first time as a world, we're all willing to accept that students are at different places in their educational journey, right? Every second grader that started second grade this year is not at the same place in terms of reading or in terms of math or in terms of the social emotional skills. Um, and that's always been the case, right? The second graders have not always been the same. But because we were home with our families, because there's the pandemic slide that people are worried about, or we're finally willing to say, hey, each of these kids is different. And what's exciting is we have the technology now to really meet each of those children's needs. So our campaign slogan is "Every Bear Forward," because we're the Golden Bears. But if you're not in Upper Arlington, but it's about supporting every student. And the technology, we already have the iPads, the one-to-one devices, and so how can we invest in the software and the teacher professional development opportunities that allow us to really use the tools that we already have in our classroom? And then there's some longer term plans too. I said about triaging into the longer term and the short term plans. Long term plans, I think there are some really exciting curriculum opportunities. We are a public school district. We offer a fantastic college prep curriculum, but not all of our students are going to be going to college. And so how can we build some public-private partnerships? How can we build partnerships with local unions and apprenticeship programs? Upper Arlington is unique in that we don't have a significant, like a large industry in the middle of our city. And so our residents work in every sector across the city, and across different fields, different areas of interest. And that's unique to Upper Arlington. So if we need help with, or if we want to connect students with logistics, maybe that's the area that they're really interested in. We have people in Upper Arlington who work in logistics. If we have students who are interested in healthcare, we have people in Upper Arlington who work in healthcare. And so there's this unique collection of people who live here, and creating those partnerships is certainly an opportunity for us. And it's also about empowering our teachers. So that's I think the last piece. This is certainly a long-term plan. It's about rekindling what I would say is a spirit of innovation. We used to really try new things and bring them together in one district. We take them, kind of from around the world and bring them together. And we're not doing quite as much of that anymore. And so some of the really exciting things that we're doing in our classroom are just exciting things that we've been doing for a while. And when you get stagnant, then you stop growing as a district. And that, I think, is something that you solve with your long-term plans by looking at how to rekindle that spirit of innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. So this question is kind of similar, but we are having these conversations, to highlight the emergence of women of color and people who traditionally are not seen in local government and offices like these. And I wanted to ask specifically about you running. What inclusion and representation means to you, and if that was a factor that played into you making this decision.
Great question. I wouldn't say it was, well, actually, yeah, it is a factor. So, this past year, with all of the different experiences that we were having within our world, it was exciting to me because our students were finding the courage to share their voices. right? And so we had anonymous platforms like, Dear whatever school district you live in, schools where students were sharing their stories and they were finding the courage to talk about exclusion, right? And that exclusion, it was not about one specific thing. It wasn't about skin color every time. It wasn't about gender identity every time. It wasn't about sexual identity every time or ability. Um, it was about something different, but every time it was about exclusion and what we can do about that. And those are things that, as a child of immigrants, I'm pretty familiar with that feeling. As any child of immigrants would tell you, it's interesting because you're born and raised and I'm born and raised in Ohio. I will never be seen as an Ohioan, right? Because I just don't look like I was born and raised in Ohio, and I get that. Um, but it's this. It, when I was practicing optometry, I would have patients say, "Hey, where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from Canton, Ohio." No, where are you really from? No, I'm really from Canton, Ohio. Or other questions like, "Why don't you have an accent?" Because I'm from Canton, Ohio, right? These are so. And then I would go back to India, and my cousins would in Hindi ask my parents like why my hair hadn't turned blonde yet, because they were so sure that I was American. Because the way I carried myself, the way I spoke, was so American to them. And so, as a child of immigrants, you kind of get stuck in this middle where there's two different countries, and you don't really quite fit in either of those countries. Um, and for me, that actually eventually turned into a source of strength because it was really about identifying like who I am, um, and really staking my claim like I do belong here and I do belong in these spaces where decisions are being made because my experiences do help us make stronger policies that support each and every student. And so, so when I was hearing those stories to connect the dots here, you're hearing these stories of students experiencing exclusion, and when you've experienced it, you definitely identify it. You connect with it. And I'm often reminded lately of Martin Luther King saying, "Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability," and that is so true. This exclusion that students are feeling, yes, there's different things that are causing their exclusion, but it's that same feeling. And for me to think that my kids won't experience that without me stepping up and doing something, that it just inevitably will be here long enough and people will just see them as Ohioans, um, is a little naive. And this past year really kind of opened my eyes to that. And yeah, so that was definitely a part of me wanting to run is realizing that these things are still happening 30 years later in our public schools in Ohio, and so I need to step up.
That's really incredible. It's very similar to what I saw from my high school, Springboro, in the Dayton area, where I just was so blown away and proud of my friends' siblings, who really stepped up and decided to share their stories. And I'm really excited for this moment. Obviously, we talk about this all the time, but really excited that, in this space in electoral politics that, we're taking these steps to be more representative. So obviously really excited to hear your story and everything that you're doing. So I just have a couple questions just to wrap things up.
Sure.
This one question, I feel like I'm exposing myself a little bit, but I have a bit of a Candy Crush problem. And it is my one thing over the past maybe like 7 years, like a very long period of time in my life, that I like always do, and it kind of just grounds me now. And so it's actually really funny. We're in the middle of a national Candy Crush tournament that I am working really hard to qualify for. And I think it's just a really funny culmination of like, wow, this is something that I use to kind of focus and de-stress and like distract myself sometimes. And now I'm here competing to maybe meet Khloe Kardashian. I don't know. And so I wanted to ask if you had anything, I know you have a medical background, so I know you have to, be really intentional and deliberate and focused. But if there's anything that helps you or that you kind of go back to stay, focused or to calm you down or anything like that.
It's funny. So I still haven't tried Candy Crush, so I clearly I need to do this. So now yeah, I'll have to check it out. For me, I require quiet time, like just a couple minutes of just quiet. And so lately, I pull in the garage from canvassing or whatever activity I've been doing where I do a lot of talking, and I just sit in my car because I know as soon as I come into the house, then it's like it's the rush of familyhood, right? Like it's like bedtime routines, and it's dinner, and it's laundry, and it's dishes, and so I just sit in my car, and my family's kind of gotten used to this. At the beginning, my son, my younger one, called me, and someone answered the phone and was like, "Mom, why are you just sitting in the car?" But he dialed the wrong number. and, and the lady who answered the phone was like, "Honey, I think you have the wrong number." I can't even imagine what she was thinking when she got that call. But you know, it's just a few minutes to just sit and decompress. I think I used to do it when I was practicing optometry. I was up in Marion, so I had for a little while I had an hour commute, and I missed the commute because the commute was just that way to mentally shift from like work to family, and also maybe listen to some good music, um, or just drive quietly. But yeah, I would say just a few minutes of quiet time, usually in the driver's seat of my car in the garage. My kids have gotten to the point now where if they think I've been out there long enough, they just close the garage door on me. So now so they're like, all right, got it. I've been out here long enough.
That is a great system. And I'm glad that you, especially after, a long day of canvassing or anything like that, just those moments to yourself are really critical. That's really cool. So yeah, we just wanted to wrap up the conversation. Thank you again so much for joining us. I'm really excited to hear about your story and everything that you've been up to, and your motivations and passions, and, sitting in your car. I love all of it. So yeah, just wanted to close out by asking if there's anything that you wanted to, like share, if there's anything we missed that you wanted to chat about before we kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, so I definitely want to thank both OWA and Lead Ohio for this opportunity. It is so important that we hear these stories because everyone's story is unique, and everyone's story is our community, right? Like we're all part of the fabric of this country, and each of these stories woven together is what makes this country such a fantastic place to live. It's important in all school districts that we are being respectful of our legacy, and that we're also keeping an eye towards the future. And that is my approach to how we will solve future problems within the district. And yeah, that's why I'm running. But yeah, like this opportunity, this is so important. I hope you guys continue doing this work even after the elections, because it's just so good to hear all these stories. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you again for taking some time with us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the campaign cycle and all of those doors you're going to knock in Upper Arlington. And we will definitely be keeping in touch with you. So if you need anything, just feel free to reach out. And thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Good night.
Bye.